Okay, before we can actually get to painting anything on this figure, we need to actually grind away some excess plastic on all of the joints. And so what I'm referring to is this area right in here, basically directly into a double joint or a single joint or in a swivel joint, anything like that. You're gonna need to be able to just Dremel away a little bit of plastic. And the reason you're gonna do that is because when you paint, you're gonna be adding a slight buildup. And so as you open and close, twist the joints, move them, anything like that, you're actually going to risk scraping that away. And so it really sucks when you do that. So the best way to avoid this is to just take away a slight layer of the plastic, just basically even it out. You see how we've got that little buildup right here. We're actually gonna smooth that out and just Dremel that away. Keeping it rough is also perfectly fine. That's actually better because doing that will make it so that your paint actually has something to grip onto a lot more. So we're gonna go ahead and scuff that up. Now to do that, I normally use this Dremel bit right here. It's just a slight little edge head, flat at the top. It's got this good angle right around it that makes it a lot easier for getting into areas such as this, because you can kind of do this and get into it from side to side. It's a lot easier. Now the main point is trying to get the figure into a position where you can actually get inside. As you can see, this is really kind of restrictive and cut off, so a lot of this is gonna be just stopping, pausing, figuring out how you can kind of go at it with an angle. Now I've already done most of the figure's joints. As you can see, this one right here is actually already scuffed up and done, as well as these back ones here. I have not done the neck one, but that is because if you actually look into it, there's already space here and space here. Now, if you run into that on a figure joint, it's really nice because it means you don't actually need to do much prep work. It's already prepped, it's already set. You don't need to go ahead and Dremel that out. And so we're good to go. Now, the hands here are another thing that you might have to Dremel a lot of them, and these ones have already been done, so that when you move the hand up and down or side to side, however the joint actually works, it doesn't scrape that off as well. All right, well, let's get started. I'm gonna go ahead and start on the only joint on the legs that I haven't messed with, and that is gonna be the ankles right here. Now, these ones are gonna be a little special because these are side swivels and full joints like this. So, in order to do this one so that we don't lose any paint, we're gonna actually have to go at this joint right here and take away a little bit at the bottom right along this area, so that way when the foot moves around, it doesn't scuff it. Now, these are actually not the original feet to this body. I sculpted them to make them work and fixed them up. So we actually hit a little closer than they otherwise would. So every once in a while, you can get away with not actually having to scuff up this area or Dremel it away. If it's an actual leg for the body that it's on, a lot of times you can get away with that because they're usually pegged far enough away so they don't rub. However, on this one, we're rubbing just a little bit, as you can actually, if we can get it to focus, right there, as you can kind of see, that's where we're rubbing. So we're gonna wanna peel some of that away and just get rid of most of it. Now we've done the backs of these, as well as the fronts. Now, you don't need a lot. Like I said, there is a space here and here. And so you just want to rough them up in this kind of a situation. Not all legs are going to have this. This is a different piece that just happened to fit in there really, really well. And I had the extra space, so I just roughed it up instead of actually dremeling down and cutting into it. Things like this in your actual hip box, so you can actually see the area down there. There's really no way to scuff that up, nor no need, because it's completely hidden. You will never be able to scrape that away by actually seeing it, unless you are extremely anal about how perfect your figures are. All right, well, let's get started. And so the first thing I'm gonna do is just kind of take away this area right here. Now you just wanna peel that, get it out of the way, and let's go. Now we're gonna start on a lower speed, and then we're gonna just kind of start going with the joint at first, get a good groove in the baseline, and you can just kind of wiggle it around like this. And then once you get that little groove, that starter trench, you're gonna turn it, face it towards you, and then scrape back and forth. Now this is one of the most time-consuming, boring things that you can do as far as customizing, but it is one of the most important. Otherwise, you can easily spend hours on a beautiful paint job, and when you have a beautiful paint job that is so pristine and then you have a figure that's non-functional, you might as well just be building a statue. Why are you playing around with action figures and all? And so we're going to actually try to get this so that it retains its movement and can hold on to that beautiful paint job that you're going to put onto it. Now, you can do this by hand if you do not own a Dremel. There are some sets that they sell at Hobby Lobby, Michaels, anything like that, that are basically just metal sanding rods. And those work really, really well for this, especially if you're dealing with a really easy to manipulate material like what I'm dealing with here. And so you'd just take that at an angle and you'd be doing this. And most likely you'd just cut this cross section here at the bottom and file it that way. And it is a pain to do it by hand, but it is doable. I was doing it by hand for, well, a good 4 years. I only recently got my Dremel about 2-3 years ago. And so I will absolutely say that a Dremel is one of the most important tools that a customizer can have in their arsenal, because it's just something that is going to cover your bases on so many things. Sculpting errors, anything like that, you can kind of Dremel them up so that you can fix some detail in. A lot of times you can completely avoid sculpting just because you have that area where you were able to Dremel a whole area instead of sculpt. And it just helps a lot. All right, now we're going to work on this area that needs to be thinned out. Just like this. And you want to get this kind of deep, but not too bad. You don't need to worry about it too much unless you are going a little too overboard on the paint. Your paint should never be so thick that you're actually going thicker than the area you're cutting off. If they are, you're using a bit too much paint. Now, since I will be hand painting this with the testers, you're going to kind of get an idea on how difficult that can be and the area that you're working on. If you're actually using the air spray for the testers, a lot of times you can avoid pretty much all of this because you get it so thin that it's not actually going to peel away. But if you're doing any hand paints, testers or no, you want to do all of this Dremel work so that you can get it so that it'll work, be smooth, not rub at all. All right, now the way you can tell if you've Dremeled enough out is when you look, let's get that into focus, is when you look at this area here, if you can see a gap between it. You want the gap to be big enough so that your paint will be able to go through. And see, I don't quite have that gap yet, so we're going to work on it a little bit more. And once we get that gap nice and set, then we're good to go. All right, now we've got that little gap right there. If you can see that, let me try to get this into focus. There we go. And you can see the gap right there. That's really all the space that you need. You just want it nice and set, especially if you're only doing one color and going to be doing a lot of dry brushing. Then you're going to be all set, and you really don't need any more than that. All right, well, that is basically all you need to do in order to get a joint set. Now, you also want to check and make sure, of course, that we're not rubbing here. And we appear to be pretty good there. We are still touching right there, and so I'll be bringing that down a little bit more. But that gives you an idea on how to do it. And so now I'll continue on with the rest of the setup for how to paint and everything like that, and that'll come in a later video. All right, have a good one.